We develop courage to take risks because our awareness of our existence is no longer dependent on how people look at us or respond to us. If my well-being is contingent upon you, I'm going to live a life of fear. I'm going to live a life of playing it safe. I'm going to live a life of saying exactly what I think you want me to say. And I'm always going to be afraid. What if I didn't do it right? In order to overcome that, I have to ground my awareness in myself. We spoke last night about looking in the mirror. I have to know who I am. So that regardless of whether you think I'm the biggest fool that has ever walked the face of the earth, or whether you think I'm the greatest, it doesn't change how I feel about myself. And that's the only way to overcome that fear. The other quick piece of it is to recognize that the greatest tragedy is not failing, not being a fool. The greatest tragedy is never stepping up to the plate of your life. Of looking back on your life and knowing that you never stepped up to the plate because you were afraid you were going to strike out. And they were going to laugh in the stands. That's the tragedy. That's something to be afraid of. I had this incredible gift, this incredible life, all these moments. And I didn't use them. The last piece to say on this is fear on the physical level. Because of course, so some of the fears are the psychological stuff, and some is the physical. I'm afraid to fly. What if the airplane crashes? I'm going to die. There's a great story about Swami Vivekananda, who was always teaching. His big motto and message was, stand up, be fearless. And so one day, a few of his disciples decided to test him. Is Swamiji really so fearless? And so he was in a lecture hall giving a lecture, and they dressed up like bandits. Masks and dark clothes, and they come storming into the lecture hall with guns. Fake guns, but they looked real. And they made a lot of noise. And everybody, of course, thought they were real and screamed and ran under the chairs and out the doors. Swamiji kept giving his lecture. Literally, unfazed. As not real, but nobody knew that at the time, bullets whizzed by his head. Finally, humiliated, they fell at his feet. They took off their masks, they apologized, and they said, but Swamiji, really, how is it possible? I mean, guns, like not a little bit afraid? How did you do that? And he said, the bullet, which is meant to take my life, will take it even if I am surrounded by 100 guards. And the bullet, which is not meant to take my life, will not take it even if you fire at point blank range. And if we can really take that level of faith into our hearts and move forward with that, that's the best antidote to fear. I'll leave you with a true story of our Puja Swamiji, who was on an airplane. This was about 30 years ago. It was before I knew him. But this story was told to me by the man on the airplane with him, who was the chief editor of our Encyclopedia of Hinduism. And it was when Puja Swamiji was in America and having just started the Encyclopedia of Hinduism project, and he was flying all over America, raising awareness about the culture, about the religion, helping people start temples. And he and Dr. Rao, who was the editor, were on a plane, and there was a horrible storm. They were flying over Chicago, which is a place renowned for horrible storms, and there was this horrible storm in Chicago. And thunder, lightning outside, lots and lots of turbulence. And the pilot comes on and actually tells people to brace into crash position, that they may have to have a crash landing. The plane is plummeting 1,000 feet at a time. The overhead compartments open, luggage is pouring out, the plane is going like this. I mean, really, everybody thinks this plane is going to crash. People are screaming, crying, holding each other. Swamiji's writing on one of those yellow-lined, pads that they have in America. And he's just writing casually. And then the plane plummets another 1,000 feet. And everybody, again, screaming, crying, holding each other, we're going to die, we're going to die. The pilot is saying, take crash positions. Swamiji's writing. Finally, Dr. Rao can't take it anymore, and he says to him, Swamiji, what are you writing? And Swamiji says, my speech. Now, first of all, Puja Swamiji never, ever, ever, ever prepares a speech in advance. So the idea of writing a speech in and of itself is something that he doesn't do. And Dr. Rao says, Swamiji, there will be no speeches. You're going to die. We're all going to die. This plane is crashing. There are no speeches. So Swamiji says, well, see, here's the thing. I know I'm not going to die. And since everybody else thinks they're going to die, and you're telling me that this plane is going to go down and everybody else is going to die, it means I'm going to be the sole survivor of this plane crash. And when I'm the sole survivor of this plane crash, naturally they're all going to want to take my interview. And since my English isn't so good, and you're still sitting here next to me, I figured that I would use this opportunity to put some thoughts on paper so that if I had to ask you anything about how to say something in English, I could benefit from you while you were still alive next to me before the plane crashes. True story. This is what fearlessness looks like. True story. Now, most of us in our lives may not actually get there. That's a very special kind of fearlessness. But to be able to move through the world with faith, the faith that a child has in the mother's arms, the faith of knowing that it's not all on my shoulders. There's a knowledge, there's a wisdom, there's a plan, which means there's a planner that's so much bigger, so much wiser than I am, who's taking care of it all. There's a beautiful line in the prayers that we chant every morning here that says, Tu akale nahi pyare, Ram tere saath mein. You're not alone. God is with you. And if we can really live that, knowing that we're really in the mother's arms, and of course if you can live in that highest level where we began of there is nothing but God, nothing like it. But if you find it difficult to live there, at least live with, I'm in God's arms. I'm being carried by God. And allow that faith to take over. And the faith will just replace the fear in your life.